For the longest time, this whole idea of a mind-body connection felt a little fuzzy, right? It's something you'd hear about in a yoga studio maybe, but definitely not in a serious biology lab. Well, that is all changing. Right now, we are smack in the middle of a scientific revolution that's turning that vague idea into hard, undeniable biological fact. So, let's dive in.
So let's just ask it straight up. Is this whole thing for real? For decades, even a lot of biologists were pretty skeptical. The whole concept seemed impossible to test, like it was happening in some magical realm, totally separate from the world of cells and hormones and things we can actually measure. But what if it isn't magic at all?
That's exactly what's happening. There is a full-blown revolution going on in biology, and it's uncovering the actual physical wiring, the concrete pathways that connect our thoughts and our emotions directly to our physical health. We're finding out that things we always thought were purely in our heads have deep, measurable roots in our biology.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to look at this new reality of mind and body. We'll explore the two-way biological highway that connects them. Then, we'll see a real-world example of hacking our hunger signals. We'll get into the frankly startling power of belief. And finally, we'll see how your brain might actually be able to help fight disease. Okay, so let's be super clear on this first point. When things like meditation or psychotherapy or even just focused breathing actually work, they're not operating in some mystical space. They work because they are physically changing your brain and your body. This is not magic, it's just biology.
Now, this whole conversation between your mind and your body is built on something called interoception. We all learned about the five senses that look outward, right? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Well, interoception is all about the senses that point inward. They are constantly feeding your brain information about what's going on inside you. And you have to understand, this is not a one-way street. It's more like a super busy, two-way biological highway. You've got information constantly speeding from the body up to the brain, and from the brain right back down to the body. And it's all happening through different channels and at totally different speeds. So let's look at the traffic coming from the body to the brain. For really urgent news, the body uses the express lane, these super fast electrical signals from our nerves. Think about your stomach instantly telling your brain, hey, I'm stretching out down here, as you eat. But for less urgent, more long-lasting messages, it takes the scenic route, hormones traveling through the blood, like the one that gives you that I'm full feeling about 20 minutes after you've stopped eating.
And of course, the brain talks back. It does this mostly without you even thinking about it, through something called the autonomic nervous system. And this system has two settings that are basically opposites. The sympathetic system is like the gas pedal. It's your fight or flight response. It revs you up for action. And the parasympathetic system, that's the brake. It's your rest and digest mode, calming everything down. They're like the yin and yang of how your brain manages your body. So this is all fascinating theory, but how can we actually use this stuff? Well, let's look at an amazing modern example, hacking our own biology to control hunger. This is a perfect case study of how understanding just one little pathway on that brain-body highway has led to a medical revolution. So here's how it works in nature. When you eat, food makes its way to your small intestine. Down there, you have these specialized cells that act like little sensors. When they detect nutrients, they release a hormone called GLP-1. This hormone then takes a ride through your bloodstream, goes all the way up to your brain, and tells your appetite control center, hey, we're good down here, shut it down for a while. And that's what makes you feel full. Now, here's the catch. Your body's natural GLP-1 breaks down really, really fast. So some very clever chemists figured out, what if we could make a version of this hormone that sticks around for longer? And that's exactly what they did. This is the science behind blockbuster drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. They're just a modified, souped-up, long-lasting version of your body's own I'm full signal. And the results? They're pretty staggering. By basically hijacking and amplifying this natural brain-body conversation, people on these drugs can lose, on average, somewhere between 12 and 17% of their total body weight. It's just a stunning example of what can happen when we turn this biological understanding into actual medicine. But it's not a magic bullet, of course not. There can be side effects like nausea. A big one is that you lose muscle right along with the fat, so exercise becomes absolutely critical. And the effects go away if you stop the drug. But what's really wild is what's next. Early research is starting to show these drugs might also help treat things like addiction by tweaking the brain's reward circuits. Okay, so hacking hormones is one thing, but the mind's power over the body can be even more direct and honestly a lot more bizarre. This is where we get into the really extreme stuff, how the mind can both heal and, in some cases, harm the body.
Way back in the 1940s, scientists studied a phenomenon they called voodoo death. And I know, it sounds like something out of a movie, but these were real, documented cases of people who truly, deeply believed they had been cursed. And then they actually died. It wasn't supernatural. The theory was that their intense beliefs sent their fight-or-flight system into such an extreme overdrive that their bodies just gave out.
And here's the chilling part. You don't need a witch doctor for this to happen. That exact same biological process can be set off in a modern hospital. There are recorded cases of people dying after being misdiagnosed with a fatal illness, only for the autopsy to show they were perfectly healthy. Their absolute conviction that they were dying was powerful enough to make it happen. A doctor in a white coat can be just as powerful as a curse.
This is literally the biology behind dying of a broken heart. We now have a name for it, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. It's a condition where extreme emotional stress, like the grief from losing a loved one, triggers such a massive fight-or-flight response that it can physically stun the heart, sometimes even fatally.
But thank goodness, belief can also heal. And the placebo effect is the ultimate example. It is not just in your head. It's a real biological event. We now know that when someone takes a sugar pill for pain and feels better, it's because their belief that it works actually triggers their brain to release its own natural painkillers, endorphins. And we can prove it. We can give someone a drug that blocks opiates, like naloxone, and boom, the placebo effect for pain just vanishes. Okay, get ready for a scientific mystery, because this is a weird one. Over the last couple of decades, the placebo effect for pain has been getting stronger and stronger, but only in the United States, nowhere else. So why? Well, the leading theory is that the US is one of the only countries in the world that allows drug companies to advertise directly to consumers. All those ads may have subconsciously ramped up our collective belief in the power of a pill. So if our minds really have this much influence, what does that mean for treating the big, scary diseases? Well, this is the new frontier. It's about actively using what we know about the brain-body connection to improve health, even for something as complex as cancer. Now, this is mind-blowing. Scientists are learning that tumors and our nervous system are in constant communication. Tumors can actually send out signals to attract nerves to grow right into them. And then those nerves can release chemicals that help the tumor grow faster and even hide from our immune system. This also helps explain why chronic stress is so dangerous. Those stress hormones can literally feed a tumor. But knowing this opens up new treatment ideas, like using common blood pressure drugs, beta blockers, to cut off that communication line. And the interventions don't have to be some futuristic drug. Look at this. A major study, a randomized controlled trial, the gold standard, looked at colon cancer patients. The group that was put on an exercise program had a 30% improvement in mortality over 8 years. 30%! Let me tell you, if that were a pill, it would be a multi-billion-dollar blockbuster drug. And this is where it all comes full circle, right back to our feelings. We now have a very plausible biological map for how something like love or feeling supported by your friends and family can actually help you fight disease. Those positive emotions light up the reward centers in your brain. That signal can then cascade down and actually boost the function of your immune cells, making them better killers of invaders, including cancer cells. So all of this forces us to ask a really big question. For the past century, we've focused on creating drugs that treat the body from the outside in. But what if the next great medical leap doesn't come from a lab, but from looking inward? What if it's about learning how to scientifically unlock the incredible pharmacy that already exists inside each and every one of our minds?